A monument older than the pyramids, built without wheels, without cranes, without metal tools, and yet, it still stands. For centuries, Stonehenge has baffled scientists, storytellers, and skeptics alike. Was it a temple, a tomb, an alien landing site, or something even stranger? New digs, new data, DNA studies, tool marks, quarry scars. They're pulling long-buried truths back into the light. The builders weren't a single tribe or a single moment. They came in waves, carrying knowledge, customs, and a purpose big enough to span generations. The monument didn't appear in a day. It evolved for over 1,000 years, shaped by migration, ritual, and power. And the answers don't just solve old questions. They change how we see ancient history altogether. Let's start with the part that sounds impossible. Stonehenge wasn't just built before trucks and steel. It was built before the wheel existed in Britain. Let that sink in. Stand in the circle and look up at those giants. Sarsen stones as heavy as 40 tons, lintels locked on top like carpentry and rock. No roads, no carts, no iron, just wood, rope, bone tools, and sheer human will. 5,000 years ago, Salisbury Plain was wild and open, dotted with early settlements. Around 3100 BCE, people carved a circular ditch and bank out of chalk with deer antler picks. No bronze, no iron. Pottery barely spread. And still, they began one of the largest building projects in prehistory. A project so vast it would outlive the people who started it. At first came timber, posts set into deep pits we call the Aubrey holes. Then, centuries later, the plan hardened. Around 2600 BCE, smaller bluestones arrived from the Preseli Hills in Wales, more than 200 miles away, each up to 4 tons. Later, the Sarsens came in, local sandstone titans from the Marlborough Downs, about 25 miles off, some over 40 tons. How do you move that without wheels? The practical answer is elegant and brutal. Wooden sledges and log rollers, grease tracks to cut friction, teams hauling in rhythm as the backlogs leapfrog to the front, a slow, relentless crawl across earth and water. When the ground fought back, they adapted. Steeper slopes, more ropes, swamps and rivers. Lash the stones to heavy rafts and ride the waterways. Some routes likely hugged the Welsh coast, then turned up the River Avon, not because it was easy, but because it was possible, and raising them. Picture a deep pit and a long earthen ramp. The base of the stone slides into the hole, ropes bite, levers pry. Gravity does what gravity does best when you give it a plan. Up the ramp the stone goes, then down into position, locked by the earth itself. The lintels, scaffolds, counterweights, and clever joints you'd expect in wood, not rock. Mortise and tenon pins, tongue and groove edges. Ancient precision, scaled to the size of buses. Modern experiments show it can be done with timbers, ropes, and a few dozen determined people. So the real mystery isn't, could they? It's, how badly did they want this? But step back. Why build it at all? Why pour out generations of time and muscle on a windy plain in the middle of nowhere? One answer. The work itself was the ritual. Communities coming together under a shared banner, hauling, shaping, aligning, because the doing bound them as tightly as the ropes. Or maybe it marked power, territory made permanent in stone. Maybe it charted the sky. Maybe it did all of that at once. And those stones? The biggest puzzle isn't the Sarsens, it's the bluestones. Smaller, darker, igneous. Nothing like the local sandstone. 20+ tons in total, piece by piece across mountains, forests, and rivers. Why not use what lay nearby? Because these stones meant something. Maybe they tied the monument to ancestral lands. Maybe people believed they healed. Maybe they were gifts from distant groups, proof of alliance and prestige. In the 1970s, a counter-idea tried to steal the show. Perhaps glaciers dragged the bluestones closer during the last ice age. But the evidence points back to people. Quarry faces in Preseli, tool marks, staging areas. These stones weren't random boulders left behind by ice. They were selected, cut, and carried with intent. And as soon as the bluestones took their places, the legends rolled in. Giants, magic, and one wizard in particular, Merlin. Medieval stories claimed a king wanted a memorial so powerful it would last forever. Merlin knew just the stones, a healing circle across the sea. When soldiers failed to move them, Merlin conjured them into the sky and flew them to England, setting them down in the ring we see today. It's poetry, and it stuck for centuries. Not because it's true, but because Stonehenge looks like it must be magic. To a medieval mind, the stones were too big, the geometry too neat, the purpose too grand. If humans didn't do it, something else must have. Today, people still gather at solstice. Modern druids, pagans, tourists, night owls, and sunrise chasers, turning to watch the light track through the stones. No spells, just the same sky that mattered 5,000 years ago. But for a long time, the myths hid the makers. Druids, they came too late. Iron Age, 1,000 years after the earliest phases. Vikings, 2 millennia too late. Romans, wrong era, wrong style. Greeks, Egyptians, wandering sages. Appealing, also wrong. The truth is simpler and far more impressive. Stonehenge is homegrown, not the gift of strangers, not the work of one people or one reign, but a living monument built and rebuilt by Neolithic and early Bronze Age communities who farmed, feasted, and planned. Think legacy, not project. From 3000 to 1600 BCE, roughly 15 centuries, different groups added, removed, repositioned, and realigned. Early farmers marked the circle and dug the Aubrey holes, 56 pits in a precise ring. Later arrivals set the bluestones. Later still, the Sarsen trilithons rose and locked the monument's famous face into place. Who were these people really? Not faceless labor. Archaeology at nearby Durrington Walls just up the river found houses, hearths, pottery, animal bones, whole villages pulsing with seasonal life. Evidence of enormous midwinter feasts, pigs and cattle driven in from all corners of the islands. Imagine the scene. Smoke curling over campfires, drums in the cold air, kids chasing each other past stacks of timbers, then hundreds of hands on ropes, moving one stone another few feet toward a future they'd never see. Somewhere along the way, Stonehenge became a symbol, a place of power, identity, and memory. Newcomers didn't erase it, they inherited it, and left their own mark without breaking the line of the sun, because the sky is the quiet engine of this place. On the summer solstice, the sunrise shoots along the avenue, threading the ring through the heelstone. On the winter solstice, the sunset sinks into the heart of the circle. That's not luck, it's design, a careful choreography of earth and light. Call it a calendar if you like. Call it a ritual clock. Either way, it mattered to people who planted and harvested by the seasons, who watched the turning year not on a screen, but in the sky itself. Look closer, and the circle gets deeper. Cremations from the earliest layers. Many of the dead were young adults, leaders, elites, or honored members of their clans. Some remains were placed near the stones or even inside those original pits. So the monument didn't only watch the sun, it spoke to the dead. Follow the ceremonial avenue down to the River Avon and you can picture the procession. From the living hub at Durrington to the stone circle at the edge of meaning. Feast, then farewell. River, then ring. Life, then memory. And those engineering tricks? They're human genius in slow motion. Ramps, scaffolds, counterweights. The same principles you'd use to muscle a couch up a staircase, multiplied by thousands. Carpentry thinking carved into stone joints that still lock tight after 5 millennia. When you strip away the myth, what's left is even better. People who solve the impossible with patience. Zoom out and you realize Stonehenge isn't alone. In France, at Karnak, rows of standing stones march toward the horizon. In Turkey, Göbekli Tepe's carved pillars, older than agriculture in some places, form ancient circles of their own. Across the Pacific, Easter Island's Moai walked, in a manner of speaking, on ropes and teamwork. Different cultures, different continents, same urge to lift the heaviest thing in sight and line it up with the sky. Coincidence? Or something universal in us, a need to make meaning outlast our breath? Stonehenge itself hasn't stood untouched. Storms toppled stones. Time buried edges. In the 1800s and early 1900s, restorers re-erected fallen pieces, and stabilized the ring. So what you see today is both ancient and carefully preserved, a collaboration across millennia between builders and caretakers. And still, the circle calls people in. Every solstice, the plain fills again. Hands reach out to the same stones. Phones rise where torches once flickered. We haven't stopped reading the sky. We've just changed the tools. So, what was Stonehenge? A calendar? A cemetery? A temple? A cosmic machine built across 1,000 years? Yes, maybe parts of all of that, woven together by communities who believed the heavens and their ancestors were worth the wait. Because here's the real reveal. Stonehenge isn't proof of giants or alien engineers. It's proof of us, of what determined people can do with wood, rope, and a plan that outlives them. They didn't ask what they lacked. They asked what would still stand when they were gone. Tell us what you think Stonehenge truly was. Drop your theory in the comments. If ancient mysteries pull you in, like and subscribe. Because next time, we're going even deeper into the world's forgotten wonders. Grab some coffee and click the next story.